My name is Anthony Momodu. Welcome to today's edition of the program The Enterprise on People's Television. On today's edition, we'll be talking with the Managing Director of Engulf Global Resources Limited. Thank you for joining us on The Enterprise.
Thank you, Tony.
All right, we'd like to know, first of all, what really inspired you to set up the enterprise?
Number one, the company is a public relations based outfit. And Engulf means Emmanuel, Ndubisi, Chinedu, Okoro, and family. I did not expect it to be a single straightforward company owned by me and me alone. I wanted to make sure that my family, including my children, were involved in what I was doing. After many years as a broadcaster, I found out that there were gaps between public enterprises, private people, and the mass media. And I'd done a lot of emceeing, and I discovered that there was a need to have companies that will bring people to the limelight between the public and the media. And that you require the media to be successful. Both the church, both private people, government, and corporate bodies, they all need the media. And I know that with a good rapport, companies will do well, their sales will go higher, and individuals who are seeking for political offices will receive greater attention. And so I decided that when I leave the public service, I was going to establish a media-based institution that will focus and deal with bringing people to publicity.
Take us through, did you have to take a loan to set up your business? How challenging was it?
Number one, I had trained in the United States, which is a capitalist-oriented society. So when I came back here, I decided that at the end, I was going to end up being the chief executive of my own company. I didn't require too much of capital because of my family background. I required a place, and I had a place. And I know I could reach out to some of my friends. I had a modest beginning, starting up with friends and family members. I started it because I didn't need too much. I required people to know what I was going to do and to create a friendly network with the mass media in general. Having established that, I now discovered that I will also build a large network of clients. I didn't want to meet everybody. I targeted certain people and I said I was going to reach them. And when I got into advertising, I realized that a lot of people did not know that advertising was not that terribly expensive. So as I made my commission from adverts, I began to increase from one room to a big warehouse, which I now partition into several rooms for my equipments like camera, like other stuff. What was important to me was competent staff who were going to help me take my message forward.
All right, talking about staff, how easy was it getting the right kind of staff? And what was the wage bill like? And how much turnovers did you have before getting the right kind of staff?
Okay, I said this. I began first in Owerri when I was working with Governor Denwa as a highly placed official, SA. At that point in time, I began to find out that competence was more important than loyalty.
Okay.
And I began with a good secretary, a young man who had a lot of vibe to do work. He was also very intelligent. And a driver. So there were three of us. Because I know I needed to move around, and I know the secretary was going to pick information from me. And with time, we grew from 3 to 10 members of staff, because there was now the need to expand. I expanded into printing because I knew that you cannot do public relations without publishing certain things for people. And Nigerians like quality product. I realized that. There were some people who were not properly educated. They didn't have secondary education. So their quality of printing were filled with numerous errors. So I knew too that I could graduate into digital printing and something that would have aesthetic value, so that if the Nigerian electorate or somebody reads my production, the person will be inspired. That was how I moved on to getting 15-member staff. Because you have some people, printing people, who will print well. You have people who will read. You have people who will deliver to various places. And then I moved on to getting 3 drivers because of delivery. The one who's going to move me, the one who's going to move the goods, the one who's going to move the other aspects of our work. And I still had to do top quality emceeing for high-profile persons and charged more. So each money, when I made some money, I brought them back to my company to ask myself, what do I need to do in what areas? Luckily for me, I developed international connections, and those international connections helped to make my enterprise move. Before I left Owerri and got into Abuja, which had a bigger field. And being in Abuja here, I first worked as a special advisor to the former Minister of Education. So I acquired more clientele as I moved on.
All right, looking at government policies, how would you say they've affected your enterprise? Have you suffered double taxations? How would you assess government policies?
Well, first of all, Tony, my company registered with the CAC, and I made friends with them, and they explained to me some of the hazards in the Nigerian business environment, and I had to avoid them. For instance, I don't do undercut dealings. I go forward. There are too many people who come to me today when they want me to print certain things, and I tell them we don't print such things. If you make yourself vulnerable, then you're going to do with double taxation. But if you deal with the issues as they are, you're not doing underhand dealings. You're not going to get affected with double taxation. Except my people, sometimes when they go out to deliver materials, some local government people charge them for bearing my logo and on the vehicles, NCOF Global. And each of these vehicles move from state to state. Like the other day, we were to deliver something to Niger State. Somebody in Mina said we have to pay for crossing over to Mina. And then you move over to Kano, you pay again. Meanwhile, we've paid to Amak here in Abuja. That is the kind of taxation they demand. But the initial taxation is that all my staff, they've paid their tax because you are in tune with CAC. You make your returns. And at our level, we are a very modest company, so we have nowhere to hide in terms of working with our proceeds, our investments, and so on. And I'm still within the same area that I registered. I'm not into medicine. I'm not into engineering, except now that I moved into small construction, because I discovered that Nigerians leave all the big jobs and not the small jobs to the big firms. So I moved into public relations, printing, publicity, media relations, and community liaising. They're all interrelated. Because if I move out, I found that most Nigerians are happy to know that somebody can charge them something reasonable and give them quality work.
All right, let's look at the issue of power supply, the cost implication of running your business. Can you take us to what it costs you running your business, in terms of power supply and other consumables?
Number one, in our country today, when you want to start any company of any size, after you get your location, because you want to talk about a place that has visibility to the customers, then you want to talk about the equipment you're going to use. And you're going to talk about what levels of power. But no matter how you do it, you have to have a moderate optional supply of power, whether it's 1,000, 5,000, depending on the wattage. You have to have it, because there will always be some disruption in power supply from the central link. So we thought about this and started small with a generating set. Then as time goes on, you discover that when you're doing printing, and my printing company is not located within my area, we moved out, we had to go and get a Lister generator. This is where I got some help. And that Lister generator is so important, because we had to have a vision that if you give us something to print for you at the opportunity, the longest time we give you will be 3 days to make sure we deliver it at your doorstep and to satisfy you. So we establish a link between us and you, so you see what we're printing for you, give us approval before we produce the final product. However, our costs are not exorbitant. We are cost friendly.
But the cost for you in running your office, how in a month would you say you spend 100,000 because of the running of the generator set, paying other consumables? How much do you spend in an average?
Okay, for instance, now when you increase your number of staff input, okay, you pay more. Okay. Depending on the quality of staff you're looking at. For example, my graphic designer is a top-notch person trained in the University of Ghana, and he is good, and he's trained a few other staff and some youth corpers who come in. Then the second one is, no matter how you do it, when petrol cost goes higher, you pay higher, because you burn your generator. There's certain times I tell them, do not put off the generator, because there'll be work going on, and our systems, if you look at our computer systems, they depend on light. So before, when you were paying less than 100 naira per liter of fuel, and then you move over to diesel, you see that your cost varies. So we do add these costs into our unit of cost of production. For instance, before we can print an A4 poster, say 100 naira a copy. But with the cost of fuel, everything, we now move over to 120 naira per copy. However, our quality remains the very best in Abuja. Go ask anybody. Our leaflets about the best, because we have a Korean who goes through and say, this is what is good. Because, you know, my daughter lives in Indonesia, and we have this international communication pattern that tells us what is good abroad and what is acceptable into Nigeria. And the foreign embassies also patronize us, because we produce what they could have also produced in their country.
All right, let's look at when you're dealing with competition to other rival firms. How has it been dealing with competition? Have you ever had a rival company put you down?
Oh, we have rival companies here and elsewhere.
I would like to know the cost implications of these things.
Yeah, but I would say, for example, the way we supersede other companies is in our competence and level of production. As I told you now, in my company, we have the highest network of friends in the media, and we try to distance ourselves from our local people. I have in my hands here a list of all media professionals in Nigeria, but I have a total code on 26 radio stations here in Abuja and beyond. For all the 36 states of Nigeria, I have friends in 130 media, including newspapers, the social media. So I'm always ahead, because those who are my subordinates, try to bring in evidence of competition. We thrive because we are always at the forefront of knowing what is trending, what is globally attractive. Some of our competitors, they're not educated. In local printing, you don't need university education to be a good printer. But what I needed to do was to get people who are sophisticated, because I think ahead of what Nigeria will be requiring. That Nigerians require quality stuff. That's why when you hear when people say, I don't buy local shoes, I don't buy local suits. They were looking for quality, high-taste materials. So for us here, we try to provide something that will be profitable. If you hire us to do a job for you, we will give you guarantee that the next 1 month, you have higher patronage by various clients, and you make more profits. There's no need going to a company that may be cheap, but at the end you regret it. And finally, in our company, our insurance companies first insure us. That takes care of damage you're talking about, because you never can say what may happen. So when they insure you faithfully, you know that sometimes, for example, there's a time when our generating sets broke down and we lost 1 week. And 1 week in production, it's a whole year. But the insurance company came through and assisted us to take care of that, and they moved on. The losses that we incurred, of course, they were there, but you are happy that at least you're back on stage.
All right, let's look at, in terms of equipment, how do you source your equipment? What are the cost implications of the equipment in terms of foreign exchange? How does it affect your market?
Okay, I'll say this now. Because of our Nigerian environment, during this recession, we experienced certain challenges. For example, forex, getting to buy paper from abroad, or to buy from first importers, what we call first importers in Lagos and Onitsha. It increases. So when I charge people, or when my marketing people charge, they put this into consideration. Take example now, we are printing out greeting cards and seasonal documents, political party pamphlets and so on. We know that as at this time, cost of paper will be high, because if those importers pay more for dollar, they swing it back to us. And then we gradually put it back to the customer, because he knows that there are certain things we don't manufacture here, which we use in our production. Take example, we have the largest range of gift items, 80, going from face caps, t-shirts, buttons, name it, kettles, torchlights, and so on. We bring them from manufacturers and rebrand them for people's peculiar needs. That's what we do.
What's the cost of getting equipment into the country and the local content you source here? Can you give us, in terms of figures, how much it costs you?
Okay, I'll give you a small example. Our laptops here, or our computer equipment here, they are cheaper because people buy them in larger quantities. We just go and pick some units. Like I have 2 units, all right. But things like generators, diesel, there are so many brands that are very expensive. Before we used to buy, you could buy a good generator for 385,000, but now they have gone beyond the 1 million mark. If you're looking for a high quality generator that can be sustainable, strong and durable, and you go through the channels, for example, before you clear them from the wharf and bring them to your company, they would have gone on to 1.5, 1.6. But if you're happy and lucky, you get something that's good, you'll be able to recoup, because you see the service coming from their production. The product you get from, say, 4 units that makes up a printing section, you know which one is which, and you know when to service them. That's when it calls for strong technical staff. So each time you want to be sure that the technical staff know that your machine will run for several hours and that be maintained by competent hands. Because as a private person, if you don't have good technical staff, it's suicidal. Because right now, many of our customers, they come to us knowing that we will produce in the next 2 days we deliver. Because the machines are there and the technical staff they're busy servicing those machines. But in terms of high cost of fuel, high cost of diesel, oh yes, because it fluctuates from one point to the other. And we're happy in the last 9 months, it's been stable, and we don't just
So when
pass
do
on.
you, in terms of your business now, when do you make profit? At what point? What areas gives profit, and what areas are not very beneficial for your business?
Okay, sometimes it's a trade secret that when we who are in the printing industry, like publishing of books,
Okay.
you make some profit from there because the same paper, the design has been made, and you've produced a clean copy,
Template already.
and then your staff knows that 5,000 copies of books, something is going to be in there because you don't change the print, template is there, and all the production follows your pattern.
All right.
Yes.
Let's look at for those that want to come into this enterprise you're already into. What would be your advice to them?
The advice I give them, first of all, is education. Get to know what is it that you want to do. 2, financial layout. 3, your capital base or clients. Nigeria's clientele is beginning to show sophistication. So anybody coming into this area to work in the field of public relations practice, publicity, and printing and gift items, you must know your field more than your customer. Have the international knowledge, because it's a small world now. Many ministries who discover us found out that what we have, other companies don't have it.
All right, that's how we call it a wrap on today's edition of the program, The Enterprise. We've been talking with the Managing Director of NCOF Global Resources Limited, taking us through the paces on what inspired him to set up his business and how far and what the future holds for him. On that note, we call it a wrap. See you next week for another exciting edition. I am Anthony Momodu.